Good morning, all. We're really glad to have you here today. My name is Emily Reddick. I'm the Executive Director of MASSCreative. I am joined by Team MASSCreative, which includes Tracy, Selassie, Sophia, and Danny. This is our May 22nd virtual policy and action update. Let's get right to it. So, quickly, some federal updates. So as I spoke last week, the HEROES Act was passed by the House, but it is very clear that that bill, which is the fourth stimulus bill, will not be supported by the Senate nor the President. So that is not going to be the fourth stimulus bill. However, there seems to be some bipartisan support for a number of provisions within that HEROES Act, and there is conversation happening between leadership in the House and the Senate and the White House around what a fourth stimulus bill would look like. It's important to note that Senate Majority Leader McConnell and the White House have said very clearly that they want to see how the provisions in the third stimulus act, the CARES Act, play out a little bit longer before they work on a fourth stimulus bill. In the meantime, over 70 national arts and cultural organizations created a document, which isn't going to be in your chat box, thank you, Selassie, which is the arts sector and COVID-19 relief recommendations. This is for May 2020. It falls under sort of three umbrella asks. So the first one is about workforce and creative sector capacity. That's things like making sure there's more PPP money and EIDL money, making sure that there's pandemic employment assistance continues. Then moving and looking at the ongoing creative sector activity. That's things like expanding the reach of broadband so that there's more internet access for everyone, and ensuring that arts education is included in school plans for reopening or for modified remote learning. Finally, there's a number of asks that fall under safety and infrastructure, and those are really about how are we going to keep our workers, our artists, our technicians, our culture workers, and our audiences and communities safe through access to PPE. So many PPs here going on. So that's something that we are going to be looking at and working on advocating when we look to our federal advocacy work in partnership with national organizations. The other piece, which was stood up by the National Council of Nonprofits, was a letter to the U.S. Department of Labor. So this is the thing we talk about a lot, which is that there are self-insured employers who did not pay into their state's unemployment trust funds and instead choose to reimburse that trust fund if they let someone go or furlough someone. Can we just make sure everyone is on mute? Thanks so much. So the 2 weeks ago, in the CARES Act, there was a provision that 50% of that liability that employers hold and need to pay back to their state trust funds is in fact going to be covered by the federal government, so they only have to pay half of it. The Department of Labor put out guidance that said states have to charge those employers 100% of the total amount and then can reimburse those employers 50%. Now, we all know how devastating that can be to an organization with a very low cash reserve right now. And so there was a letter sent by a number of folks, national organizations, saying, don't do it that way, change that guidance and allow states to just charge the 50%. So now I'm going to move on to some state work. So unemployment again. So I have some really good news. So yesterday, the Senate passed Bill 2618. This includes a provision that would allow a 120-day delay on that unemployment contribution payment that those nonprofit employers are scheduled to have to make. This is going to go into effect immediately upon signing, and we expect that Governor Baker will sign it in the next coming days. Why this is important is because it gives us more time to continue our advocacy and our push for a full 100% forgiveness. So again, this is a place where we're working on the federal level with our partners who do federal advocacy and on the state level with our partners who do state advocacy, including the Mass Nonprofit Network, the Massachusetts Association of YMCA's, Boys and Girls Club, and the Providers Council. The other piece of legislation that had a little bit of movement this week that I want to make sure you know about is a business interruption insurance bill. So in March, Senator Eldridge filed a bill that would make the COVID-19 and Governor Baker's declaration of of emergency a covered claim under business insurance policies. 45 co-sponsors joined Senator Eldridge. That included both House and both representatives and state senators. There was a hearing yesterday with the Joint Committee on Financial Services. So that bill took its next step in the process, and we're continuing to follow it. So now the other piece of work I want to just share is not necessary. Well, it is COVID related, but it isn't sort of about immediate relief. It's looking ahead. We know that our work as leaders in our communities and as and encouraging civic connection and community mean that we need to take a stand in ensuring that elections and participation in elections is free and fair. So MASSCreative joined a coalition urging for this piece of legislation to ensure all Massachusetts voters can cast ballots safely in the fall. That includes expanded allowances for mail-in ballots as one of the bigger things. So this is continuing to develop, but this is another place where we see a real need for the creative community's advocacy to stand up and partner with other organizations to work on things that are going to make our Commonwealth better connected, more vibrant, and equitable. So now I'm going to move on to a couple of comments that Speaker DeLeo made at the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce virtual event the other day. He is very much planning on supporting a 1/12 budget for July. So what that means is that by July, the legislature is supposed to have finalized and finished their budget for the next fiscal year. Given the unbelievable upheaval in terms of state revenues, what Speaker DeLeo wants to do is he wants to pass a 1/12 budget, which is basically like a monthly budget that would be level funding for state agencies in the administration. That gives them all more time to develop a fiscal year 21 budget that responds to the reduced revenue levels that they're seeing. The other thing that Speaker DeLeo did is he stood up a Commonwealth Resilience and Recovery Special Committee. It'll be chaired by House Majority Leader Mariano of Quincy. And its goal is to really look at developing policies that are going to mitigate economic hardship, minimize unemployment and job loss, and stabilize small business ownership. So MASSCreative is working right now to make sure that that committee, including identifying who the other committee members are, but ensuring that that committee understands our needs as the creative and cultural sector and thinks about that when they are crafting and developing legislation. Now we're going to move on to reopening. So on Monday, Governor Baker and his Reopening Advisory Council, council, released their reopening plan for Massachusetts. As was previewed last week, it is a 4-phased approach that is really dictated by the public health data trends that they are tracking, and started actually last Monday. So on May 18th, phase 1 officially began. Thank you to the Artery for going through all of the phased plans and identifying all of the arts and cultural connected sectors that are allowed to open under each phase. I think I just want to underline and italicize and bold this for us all. These dates, so each phase has to last at a minimum 3 weeks. And so we've estimated out what the start dates for these next phases would be. There is no guarantee that these will be the official start dates. These phases could last longer if public health trends don't improve, or they could go backwards if public health trends deteriorate. So it's really important that we don't plan on opening immediately on June 29th or July 20th or June 8th until we get more clear guidance and communication from the state. The other big piece of this is that each phase, there's real detailed guidance around phase 1. There's less detailed guidance around phase 2. There's almost no clear guidance around phase 3 and phase 4. Forgive this cliche, but they are clearly building the plane as they fly, as we all are. And so right now they are working on more detailed instruction for phase 2. We continue to advocate for the inclusion of the creative community and cultural community to help partner with the state as they are developing guidelines for all of these phases. I think the other big headline that I just want to make sure we're all aware of is that the majority of the creative and cultural sector is really not going to open fully until phases 3 and 4. And what that means is, even if we're able to open, our capacity to do the work and break even is going to be limited based on capacity, audience caps that might be included, and as well as audience and consumer trends. We are already seeing that people don't feel comfortable yet going back into public spaces. And so we're going to have to work on that as well. What that means for us in terms of our advocacy is it means we are advocating on the federal, state, and local level for safe harbor support and public investment to protect as much of the creative ecology as we can during this phase when we are not able to do our work the way we traditionally do it. One of the bright spots that I think we've all noted is the ways in which our creative sector has quickly adapted and pivoted to new business models. But those business models are going to take some time to test out and see whether or not they have an ROI that actually allows our sector to thrive. And so we need support when we're working on those business models to allow us the room and the space to take risks. These are all things we are advocating for. One more thing that I want to mention, then I'm going to turn it over to Tracy. It is this, that there is a working group that Lieutenant Governor Polito and Secretary Keneally stood up on Monday. It is about hotels, restaurants, and cultural sites around phase 2. Here are the members of that working group. I think it's really important to note that there is not a single representative from a cultural or cultural tourism space or organization included in this working group. We have already reached out to Secretary Keneally's office, offering the help of the creative sector in this working group. We've had advocates reach out to members of this list of working group members to encourage them to consider and think about the cultural community when they are developing these guidelines for phase 2. So this is something that's ongoing, and it's something that I just want to make sure you are all aware of. Now I'm going to turn it over to Tracy.
Hi all. To piggyback off of Emily, obviously reopening is top of mind. So as we give you the top actions for this week, we want it to mirror that. So this week, it's all about responding to Governor Baker's reopening guidelines, in particular, reaching out to your members of Congress, either by emailing them or actually picking up the phone and calling them. So like Emily said, Congress is really important right now. So I know you often get state and local advocacy actions from us, but federal, state, and local advocacy, it's all important. And right now is really the time to focus on Congress. And in particular, it's because any emergency loans or programs that are going to come down to our state and our municipalities need to first be created by Congress and administered through the Treasury and the Small Business Administration. And so really, when we're thinking about who is our decision maker around these emergency loans and programs and stimulus packages, it is Congress. So we're giving you two options on how to reach out to your members of Congress, either through an email or through a phone call. Both are really important for different reasons. So emails are excellent because it's a really easy action. It just takes 2 minutes. So it allows a lot of arts advocates to take an action. It's very easy access. It also, because it's so easy, more messages will go into your member of Congress. So that higher volume will tell them that this is an important issue to their constituents. Calls, also important. So we think of it as a medium-sized action. Takes 5 to 10 minutes based on how comfortable you are with it or whether you've reached out to your member of Congress through phone before. So it takes a little bit more effort, but that tells your member of Congress or their staffer that this is really important because you are willing to put a little bit more effort in. And it's more personal. So this is really great for relationship building with your members of Congress and allows you to kind of keep up that trajectory. All right, so steps for emailing your members of Congress. I know lots of you know how to do this, but we want to make it accessible. So Americans for the Arts, who is our federal partner on federal advocacy for arts and culture, they keep on updating their action alerts. So we want to point you to those. all of these will appear in the chat box, so thanks to Selassie. So basically what you want to do is you want to look at that action alert. There's a couple places where you can edit, so you can personalize your message, you can edit the pre-filled message. All you do is put in your contact info and then press send. So this is what it looks like. There will be two messages, a first message and a second message. That's to make sure that your message goes to both Senators Warren and Markey and your state representative. And in order to do that, you need to fill out that contact info box so it can match you with your right member of the House of Representatives. All right, so that is emailing. Steps for calling. It's really simple, 4 things. Look up your member of Congress. Prepare what you're going to say. MASSCreative has put together a template. You want to actually pick up the phone and call them. We're not sure if you're going to be able to speak directly to your member of Congress or a staffer or leave a message, and we want to know that. So please report your call to us. We whipped together a quick Google form to help you do that. And that is calling. All right, so just like every week, if you have the time and capacity and are wanting to do more, we want to give you that opportunity. So on our website, under advocacy, more actions that you can take. And we want to make sure that we're linking with our partners that are doing great work as well. All right, back to Emily.
Thank you, Tracy. So as always, please share with us your feedback and your questions. I know that there are a lot of questions related to reopening, and we are working as hard as we can to help share your questions with decision makers and help find clear guidance that allows us to safely support our communities in reopening. So finally, for some of us, it is a long weekend this weekend. MASSCreative's offices will be closed on Monday. Please don't think that doesn't mean that we're not continuing to do our work. But I do hope we are all able to pause. The COVID-19 pandemic has been both a human crisis as well as a economic crisis for all of us. And I know some of us have lost people because of COVID-19. So I just want to take a moment and acknowledge that this has a real human cost as well as an economic cost. I want to extend my condolences to anyone on this call who has lost someone due to COVID-19. Thank you all for being a part of our work. Our next call will be next Friday, same time, same place. We do this work with you, and so we are so glad to have you join us. Thank you so much, and I hope you get some time to go outside this weekend. Have a good day.